Hey guys, welcome back to the shop and thanks for checking out the video. Today we're going to be getting a little romantic by revisiting an old project in a new way. For Mother's Day last year, I made my wife this flower and vase combo. This was a really fun project to make. Really liked the overall kind of process of putting it together, and she absolutely loves it. She loves the fact that the flower is going to last forever and that it's not going to shrivel up and die on her. However, as I was looking at this on the shelf the other day, it looks kind of sad with just a single flower in it, and so I thought it'd be a lot of fun for Valentine's Day this year to make her an additional flower to go in her vase. But instead of just a standard wood flower, this time we're going to make it out of resin. Our first step is to make our mold, and for that we're going to be using this piece of acrylic as well as this piece of PVC. And we're just going to put it on there with some hot glue. We're definitely going to be using a copious amount of hot glue on that. We want to make sure that we create a nice tight seal so that our resin doesn't just come spilling out. Okay, we'll go ahead and let that fully set up, and while that's doing that, I'll show you what we're going to use for the base. This is a piece of live edge maple burl, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun to have this kind of be the base of our flower and then have the resin coming up out of that. And so what we'll need to do is go ahead and cut this to the same inside diameter of our pipe. And so I've got a ring of the same pipe here that we'll use as our template. So let's get that drawn on there, and then we'll take this over the bandsaw and get it cut out. Okay, now that we have our burl cut out, we can go ahead and place it in our mold. One thing that's important is that we don't want it to float up when we put our resin in there. So what we'll do is go ahead and put just a dab of hot glue on the bottom and then stick it back in to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to. All right, now that our mold is done and we've got our wood in place, it's time to go ahead and start mixing up our resin. For our resin, we are going to be using Amazing Clear Cast by Alumilite. This is the same resin that we used in our nightlight video. I really like it. It's a good quality resin and it turns really nice on the lathe. So just like in that video, we're going to go ahead and do a double pour so that we get kind of a swirl of two different colors. For our first color, we're going to be using this fluorescent red dye by Alumilite. Depending on how much you put in, you can get more of a fluorescent red or you can get kind of a bright fluorescent pink. In addition to the dye, we're also going to be adding in some of this white superfine glitter and some of this Pearl X pigment powder, and this is just the metallic. For our other side, we're going to be doing just clear resin with some of this fuchsia glitter, and I think that'll look really fun in the petals. So let's go ahead and get our resin mixed up. Now that we've added our glitters and our dyes, we can go ahead and start mixing everything together. Now that we have our colors thoroughly mixed, we'll go ahead and let those rest, so let some of those bubbles come to the top before we pour it into our mold. All right, now we're just going to do a gentle swirl. We're going to go ahead and put this into the pressure pot and let that cure overnight. Well, it's the next day now, so let's go ahead and let the pressure out of this and see how our mold looks. Perfect, nothing spilled out. Looks like our resin is nice and hard. Awesome. Let's go ahead and get this out of the mold. I didn't use any mold release on this, so our blank may or may not come out of here. If it doesn't, that's okay. We can put the whole thing on the lathe and just turn off the PVC. But let's go ahead and get this acrylic off. Now that we have the acrylic off, we'll go ahead and take this over to the saw just to take off the top of the PVC. Once that's off, we'll go ahead and get it on the lathe. Okay, we've got our blank in the chuck, so it's time to go ahead and start turning off this PVC. We're going to start by making a small tenon on this side so we can have it more securely in the chuck, and then we'll start turning off the rest of the pipe. Okay, I've gone ahead and just cleaned up the section here that is the transition between the wood and the resin. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and start hollowing out the inside. For that, we're going to use a Forstner bit. So let's go ahead and get the drill chuck in here and start hollowing that out. Okay, now that we've got our initial hollowing done on the inside, we're going to go ahead and start working on the outside of our flower. For that, we're going to be using our Easy Wood Tools carbide cutters, and this has the negative rake cutter on it, which is really good for resins and really dense hardwoods. Now that we have our outside pretty close to where we want it, we're going to go ahead and start working on this front edge as well as the inside. Okay, I'm really liking our overall shape, so it's time to go ahead and start sanding. We're going to start at 200 and go up to 600, and then we'll start wet sanding. Okay, now that we're sanded up to 600, it's time to go ahead and start wet sanding. As you see, I've got my little tote here full of water and a towel here to protect the lathe bed. So we'll go ahead and start sanding at 600 where we left off with our dry sanding and take it all the way up to 2500 before we start polishing. Okay, now that we're done wet sanding, we've got a really nice finish on it, but we want to go for a little bit higher gloss than this. So we're going to go ahead and start applying our polishing compound, and then once that's on, we'll go ahead and apply our final finish. With our trusty tennis ball in place to give us some extra support, we can go ahead and finish this bottom edge. Now that we've got everything all nice and polished up, it's time to go ahead and get this thing parted off. Now that we have the top of our flower complete and looking really nice, it's time to start working on our stem. And for that, I went over to the wood bin and grabbed this scrap piece of black walnut, and I think this will work perfectly for what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get this thing on the lathe. Okay, our shape's in place, so it's time to go ahead and start sanding. We're going to start at 220 grit and go up to 400 to give us a nice finish on this. So let's go ahead and get to it. With our finish applied, this section's now complete and looking really nice. Now we're going to go ahead and get to work on the post here that's going to go into the bottom of our flower. Now that we have both our flower and our stem complete, the only thing left to do is just to glue them together. Well, there you have it. Our wooden resin flower is complete, and I really like how this thing turned out. It was a lot of fun to do, and these colors just pop. The metallics with that fuchsia glitter in it really looks nice, and I think the wife is really going to like it. So we'll go ahead and end this one here with some close-up shots of our flower. If you like this video, let me know by clicking on the like button. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos like this. Thanks so much for watching the video, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.